Hello and welcome to New Frontiers on CCTV International. I'm Ji Xiangqun in Beijing. In today's program, we are continuing with our major series about Chinese civilization. In it, we set out to illustrate the evolution of Chinese civilization through an investigation of archaeological discoveries, historical sites, and cultural relics. Today, nearly 500 years after the end of the Ming Dynasty, its achievements continue to fascinate us. The colossal Yongle Bell, for example, actually ran in the new millennium. Then there's the Forbidden City. And let's not forget the legendary voyages of Zheng He to the Western Seas. During the Ming Dynasty, great achievements were recorded in architecture, shipbuilding, porcelain making, and textile weaving. Chinese-made products became famous around the known world for their high quality and sublime craftsmanship.
Today, nearly 500 years after the end of the Ming Dynasty, its wonders continue to fascinate. There is the colossal Yongle Bell, which tolled in the year 2000 to celebrate the beginning of the new millennium. There are the golden glazed tiles in the Forbidden City that shine against Beijing's azure sky. And then there are the legendary voyages made by Zheng He to the Western Seas. During the Ming Dynasty, there were new achievements in architecture, shipbuilding, porcelain making, and textiles. Products made in China were already well known throughout the world for their high quality and supreme craftsmanship. But during the Ming Dynasty, Chinese technology was to reach an unprecedented level. In the process, adding yet more vibrant colors to the civilization of China and the world. Zheng He had brought more than 10,000 copies of books to give away in the hope of spreading Chinese civilization and traditional Confucian ideas. However, the items most welcomed everywhere were the beautiful silk and brocade pieces. 37 of the countries he visited received various types of Chinese silk and brocade. Most of the silk he took with him came from the south of China. The making of textiles had reached a peak, as could be seen in the fact that during the Ming Dynasty, textile making was the #1 handicraft industry in almost every large or small town in the south. Of all the textile industries, however, silk weaving was #1.
已经开始呢，逐步的摆脱了这个一夫一妻的那种自然经济的那种纺织业，一个人操作纺织业，开始了一种比较大型的手工业的这个生产，就手工工厂式的这种生产模式。所以它能够有一定的批量和一定的质量保障，至少我这一批的东西做出来它是一样的，它是一个水准的。这个呢，实际上是对传统手工业的一个革命，是个革命。那么它也是一个近代的一个工业的萌动，它是介乎于这两个之间的。
Silk weaving was the most fascinating part of traditional Oriental textile making. Oriental women brought together their remarkable skills and the beautiful images they had designed to make unique brocade. It is not only a part of Chinese history, but something that will last on into eternity. From a silkworm to silk and then to brocade, Chinese textile making had been through a magical process of innovation, and the silk and brocade produced opened up a road that linked Europe and Asia. In the early years of Christianity, nobles in ancient Rome found themselves charmed by the silk and brocade from China, describing it as rosy clouds in the sky. Through Chinese silk and brocade, they did their best to imagine the mysterious kingdom in the east from which it had come. Silk weaving had matured in China 2,000 years before during the Warring States period. Numerous silk products in a great variety of colours and embroidered in different ways have been unearthed from the tombs of that period. On October 5, 1957, archaeologists working on the inner and outer coffins of the Ming Emperor Wan Li had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see the very finest brocade made during the 16th and 17th centuries. Both the outer and inner coffins presented a showcase of the best silk and brocade products of the era, and the 300 years that had passed had taken no toll on their brilliance. All of the pieces were precious, but without doubt the most invaluable was the gown of Emperor Wan Li, which was unbelievably light in weight, extremely thin, and highly transparent. Woven into the gown were the patterns of 17 dragons flying in clouds. The silk was of the highest quality imaginable, its threads very thin, yet highly durable. In 1983, the Nanjing Brocade Institute was entrusted by the Dingling Mausoleum Museum to produce a replica of the gown. Even with the experience it had accumulated over the previous 30 years, it took the Nanjing Brocade Institute 5 years to accomplish the task. Chinese silk and brocade products had enjoyed tremendous popularity worldwide since the Han Dynasty 2,000 years ago, right through to the Tang and Song dynasties. But the Ming Dynasty pushed the silk-making technology of Song to another peak. In the early 18th century, British Navy medical workers found out what had caused the deaths of so many men under Magellan and Columbus on their famous voyages. It was scurvy, a malady caused by a lack of vitamin C. However, 80 years before Magellan and Columbus, Zheng He sailors had not suffered from a single case of this disease, for with them on their ships were porcelain containers in which they grew bean sprouts for consumption while on board. Bean sprouts are a rich source of vitamin C. After Zheng He's voyages, the countries he visited began to make Chinese porcelain. The Ming Dynasty truly was the golden age of porcelain making. Among all the kilns that made porcelain in China during the Ming Dynasty, Jingdejian in Jiangxi, Longchuan in Zhejiang, Dehua in Fujian, Yuxi and Jianshui in Yunnan stood out, and each of them had their own specialties. Jingdejian produced a complete range of products. Longchuan specialized in shadowy blue porcelain. In Dehua, it was white porcelain, and in Yuxi and Jianshui, it was blue and white porcelain. Among the porcelain products Zheng He took with him, most came from Jingdejian, and they were the best. In Jingdejian, by the early Ming Dynasty, there were as many as 20 kilns producing porcelain for the exclusive use of the royal family. But apart from royal orders, a large amount of porcelain for the use of commoners was also produced in Jingdejian. Workers in the town toiled day and night, and the kiln fires blazed all year round. Some people called Jingdejian a town of thunder and flashes of lightning. Every process in porcelain making was clearly defined, from the preparation of the clay to the final firing, and altogether there were a dozen or more steps. Each step was handled by only one person, the one most skilled in that process. This division of labor was something like a modern-day assembly line. However, division of labor based on specialization and the use of an assembly line system did not hinder the artistic aspirations of the workers. Their works often revealed artistic leanings that were quite individual, proving that there was still some room for personal expression.
The Ming Dynasty was a golden age of porcelain making, when great advances were achieved in the production technology. Thanks to Zheng He and his voyages to the western seas, Chinese porcelain became famous throughout the world.
From finds brought up from the bottom of the South China Sea, archaeologists have concluded that during the Ming Dynasty, the amount of porcelain exported to foreign countries reached a record high. A large number of merchants from Arabia, India, Portugal, the Netherlands and Britain could be seen doing porcelain business in China. The amount of porcelain exported to the Netherlands alone came to more than 16 million pieces.
博物馆这个成立的中国瓷器来看，一个数量大，而且呢质量高，特别是一些收藏家，到现在为止，我在雅加达经常有报纸上有登载中国瓷器的销售和拍卖，特别是古瓷器的拍卖，这表明在人民心目中是非常崇高的，而且呢，这个瓷器在有些庙宇里边当做神圣的这个物品来对待，人们在瓷器面前磕头烧香，希望得到瓷器的保佑，甚至把中国的瓷器神化了。
Chinese porcelain products, pale blue ones in particular, sold very well in Europe, America and Latin America. And this is the reason why in the English language, China the country and China, the other name for porcelain, have the same spelling and pronunciation. Put simply, China from China overwhelmed the world. While Zheng He's fleet was proudly presenting its dreamlike civilization to the countries and areas it visited, the builders of the Forbidden City in Beijing were working on the world's largest royal palace. Classical Chinese construction involved 8 separate tasks, and these had changed little in thousands of years. The 8 specialized areas were carpentry, brick and tile laying, stone masonry, joinery, earthworks, painting, color painting for decoration, and last but not least, paperwork on walls and ceilings. These jobs might not sound impressive in themselves, but working together, the craftsmen in these trades produced the man-made miracle that we know today as the Forbidden City.
故宫的金黄色本身，琉璃瓦本身，但是它也有很多的技术细节。它在很小很小的地方，你看很多影别，很多这个装饰性的构件上头，那个琉璃构件当中呢，它的雕刻又是非常非常细微的。甚至于这个太和殿的这个瓦呀，铜瓦的每一个瓦头上雕的那条龙，它的每一个鳞片都应该是用人工，就是做完模子以后再用人工雕刻一次。所以你想想这个精细的程度，又和它的这个体量的巨大，又成了一个非常鲜明的对比。所以我觉得这个在艺术成就上，它的高度统一的这种面貌和这个非常丰富多彩的装饰，构成了一个和谐的整体。
The dark bricks that comprise the floor of the Hall of Supreme Harmony have long been looked upon in awe and referred to as gold bricks. Even today, making replicas of these bricks is an impossible task.
金砖比较大的尺寸呢，就当时叫做2尺2，是吧？或者2尺，那是金砖尺寸很大的了。而且它的工序非常非常复杂，它实际上规定了很多工序呢，就是要求它这个加热的过程啊，是一个非常均匀。 所以它规定的要用这个糠啊，用炉柴啊，用松柴啊，最后用大木柴啊，这样一个烧制的过程。那么它规定整个烧制过程要100多天。这砖最后达成一个什么样的质量标准呢？就是所谓的这个敲起来啊要有金属的声音，但是如果把它砸断的话，不能有任何的沙眼和裂纹。 这个我觉得，这个金砖的烧制呢，应该说是明代取得的一个很高的成就。在宋的营造法式的记载当中，是没有这种工艺的。
Of all the buildings inside the Forbidden City, the Hall of Supreme Harmony is the largest, and in the years it was built, it was both the tallest building in the city of Beijing and the largest wooden construction in the world. The Hall of Supreme Harmony occupies an area of 2,381 square meters, half the size of a modern-day soccer field. The Hall of Supreme Harmony stands on an 8-meter-tall white marble base at the very center of the Forbidden City, and it is the climax of the palace complex. It not only mirrors the highest attainment of traditional Chinese architecture, but also embodies age-old Chinese philosophies. If one looked southward from the just completed Forbidden City, one would have seen another royal building complex under construction that was about the same size, the Temple of Heaven. Inside the grounds of the Temple of Heaven stands Qinian Hall, which means the Hall of Prayers for a Good Harvest. This magnificent structure includes 28 huge pillars of a kind of mahogany known as Nanmu wood, along with wooden tiers, brackets and other parts joined together to form a wonderful whole. The arrangement of the pillars implies a profound meaning. The inner 4 suggests the 4 seasons of the year, the 12 in the middle stand for the 12 months of the year, and the outer 12 the 12 periods of a day. Together, they represent the 28 constellations of the universe. Magnificent in appearance and exquisite in detail, the inside of the hall shrinks to the center as the height increases, giving the building a stately demeanor as befits its purpose to elicit in the beholder an awesome respect for the power of heaven. This effect is enhanced by the solemn-looking eaves on top of the building and the round white marble stand at the bottom. The reputation of the Chinese products Zhang He took with him brought him considerable honor and made him welcome everywhere he visited. On his 6th voyage, he reached the African coast. There, 1,200 envoys from 16 African and Asian countries boarded his ships and returned with him to China. Back in Beijing, the Ming Emperor had to arrange for 40,000 rolls of silk and brocade to be collected from around the country to present as gifts to these foreign envoys. Among those who wanted to see the legendary civilization of China was the 28-year-old king of Borneo. Unfortunately, however, after arriving in China, he fell seriously ill, and a couple of months later, he died. The Ming Emperor honored him with the title Prince Gong Xuan, and in accordance with his wishes, he was buried in a suburb of Nanjing City. His tomb can still be seen there today.
Even before the Ming Dynasty, China had been sending diplomatic missions overland to the West. For centuries, private trade had extended as far as East Africa. However, never before had a government-sponsored mission with the grandeur of Zheng He's fleet been organized. His voyages were a vivid demonstration of the economic and cultural prosperity of the Ming Dynasty.
Zheng He's 5th voyage was a somewhat hurried affair, probably due to a grand ceremony held to commemorate the moving of the capital to Beijing, although this is just a guess made by scholars of later generations. By the year 1420, the Forbidden City was almost complete, and the emperor issued orders that the colossal Yongle bell be completed at the same time. With this, dozens of furnaces were fired to release the molten bronze into the mold to cast the giant bell.
那么他当时要画那么多50吨的金属料，那是不简单，就是他必须要用质量很好的纯铜，纯锡、纯铅来配，称量要准确，在融化的时候不能有过多的氧化，因为锡跟铜跟铅的氧化率是不一样的，你假如不控制好，那么 成分就会出现波动。那么现在从化验结果来看，它这个成分还是相当的理想。
In 1420, the year the Forbidden City was completed, the huge bell was successfully cast, and it was named after the reign of the emperor, Yongle. The sound that emanates from this bell is fine indeed. One knock creates an echo that lasts as long as 2 minutes, and the sound is very musical. Today, we know the precise percentages of the metals in the alloy. It is 80.5% bronze and 16% tin, while the remaining 3.5% contains lead, zinc, and magnesium. These ingredients, besides making the bell very strong and helping it produce a pleasant sound, enable it to withstand rust. It is hard to imagine just how many tests would have been needed to come up with the correct percentages for this alloy 500 years ago. After all these years, the bell still produces a pleasant sound. Making it required a thorough mastery of metallurgy, casting, mechanics, and acoustics, so it is little wonder that in Encyclopedia Britannica, the Yongle bell comes first in the list of the world's most famous bells. When the Forbidden City was finally completed in the year 1420, it was a man-made marvel, a testament to the numerous ingenious engineers who built it in what was still in Europe the Middle Ages. The Great Wall, which the Ming Dynasty had continued to build, began near the sea at Shanhai Pass in China's east and ended at Jiayu Pass in China's west. It stretched all the way from China's eastern coast to China's northwest, an area dominated by sand and wind. Most of the Great Wall was built on the tops of hills and mountains to follow the terrain, thus highlighting the shape of zigzagging mountain ranges like a huge dragon. For this reason, the Great Wall is viewed as the symbol of the Chinese nation, and together with the Egyptian pyramids and the Taj Mahal in India, it is regarded as one of the world's truly great historic engineering marvels.
我觉得明朝至少有2点，它的制造业有2点我们是值得我们今天来肯定的。第一点就是它在制造工艺水平上，它应该集中国制造业之大成。另外一个呢，就是呢，它已经开始从传统的手工制造业向近代化的这个工业的转型。因此呢，我们可以说明朝的制造业，无论是在质量上还是在规模上，都是空前的。
The Yongle Encyclopedia, compiled during the Ming Dynasty, was the largest of all the great written works compiled in ancient China. In the year 1637, Song Yingxing of the Ming Dynasty published Tian Gong Kai Wu, or Exploitation of the Works of Nature, a comprehensive book covering science and handicraft technology. Another man named Xu Guangqi wrote Nongzhang Chuanchu, or the Encyclopedia of Agriculture. After 30 years of extensive traveling, Xu Xiaoke published Travel Notes by Xu Xiaoke, which describes China's geology in great detail. Li Shijian, who lived in the middle of the Ming Dynasty era, wrote the voluminous Compendium of Materia Medica, held to be the most comprehensive medical book in Chinese history. The Ming Dynasty boasted a long list of established thinkers and literary men. The philosophical studies of Wang Yang Ming, for example, reflected a profound exploration of human life unmatched in any previous dynasty. The famous classical novels Journey to the West, Heroes of the Marshes, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms were all written during the Ming Dynasty, as was the famous classical play, The Peony Pavilion. Crafts of all kinds went through a time of great advance during the Ming Dynasty. The long list of extraordinary achievements, including the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, and Zheng He's voyages to the Western Seas, crowned the dynasty in glory, to say nothing of the renown brought to the time by China's dreamlike silk, brocade, and porcelain, all of which charmed the entire Western world.
In the 16th and 17th centuries, Ming China was the most developed country in the world in terms of its craftsmanship and economy. The list of his achievements is long and extraordinary, including the strengthening of the Great Wall, the building of the Forbidden City, and Zheng He's voyages to the Western Seas. Products such as Chinese silk, brocade, and porcelain became much sought after in the rest of the world, and they still are today. Thank you for staying with us on New Frontiers and tuning in again next time when we'll bring you more of our series on Chinese civilization. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye.